Hello, welcome to the channel. It is I, Chris, with a K. I hope everyone's well. West Suffolk have recently had a meeting, an extraordinary meeting, regarding the whole situation of the Home Office's proposal to home 1,250 or up to 1,250 male asylum seekers, illegal immigrants, at RAF Barnham. Now bear in mind that Barnham, the village, only has just under 600 residents that live in that village. So can you imagine how concerned they are? Well, throughout this meeting you will hear those concerns from parish representatives, members of public and councillors. But rather than me tell you what they said, I shall play you the clip so you can hear it for yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak, and I would like to begin by thanking West Suffolk Council for the leadership it's shown in bringing forward this motion. The people of Barnham appreciate that their concerns are being heard. Barnham is a quintessential Suffolk village. At the 2021 census, our population was just 584 people. It's a small rural community whose character has been shaped over generations. Our concerns are not simply about the principle of asylum accommodation, but about the process, the suitability of the site, and the scale of the change being proposed. Residents first became aware that something was happening when works began at RAF Barnham. West Suffolk Council then sought clarification from the Home Office and was told that RAF Barnham was not among the sites under consideration. Yet within days, national media were contacting us ahead of an embargoed announcement. At no point were our MPs, county councillors, district councillors or parish council formally informed. That is not meaningful consultation. It is not transparency. Decisions of this scale should not arrive as a surprise to the communities expected to live with them. We recognise the government's objective of reducing the use of hotels for asylum accommodation. However, replacing unsuitable hotels with an equally unsuitable rural military site is not a sustainable option. The scale of this proposal is also wholly disproportionate. The Home Office proposes to accommodate up to 1,250 single adult male asylum seekers adjacent to a village of 584 residents. More than 2 people for every resident of the village. By comparison, other former military sites operate on different scale. At Crowborough, there are around 500 residents accommodated adjacent the town of approximately 22,000. At Wethersfield, 1,000 people have been accommodated alongside a village of roughly 1,300. Those figures matter because they show what is happening elsewhere and how different this proposal is. This is not simply a question of whether RAF Barnham can physically accommodate 1,250 people. It is whether Barnham can absorb them. That's not the same question. The suitability of the site itself is also a serious concern. Barnham has very few local amenities, no shop, no pub, and very limited access to services within walking distance. The surrounding roads are not designed for pedestrian use, and there is no safe or continuous footway to larger centres. Public transport is limited. This is an isolated rural location with very little infrastructure to support either the existing community, never mind a large additional population. In practical terms, the camp is not a location where residents can reasonably access services or where services can easily reach them. It's difficult to see how this site meets the needs of the individuals who would be housed there. If people are awaiting asylum decisions, they should be accommodated where they have access to basic services, transport and community facilities, not in an isolated former military establishment.
Now, straight away, notice the argument being made. He's not saying whether asylum itself is wrong or right. He's asking whether this particular location is suitable. Like I said at the beginning, Barnham has less than 600 people living there. He also points to the lack of infrastructure, no village shop, no pub, limited public transport, poor pedestrian access, His question is rather simple. Can Barnham actually absorb a development of that scale? He then moves to security. Now listen carefully to what he says. His concern is that a village this small, even a handful of incidents, could have a much greater impact than they would in a large city or town. And he also says that he's had parents who have already told him that they're prepared to take their children out of school given the proximity, the close proximity of the camp to the school. And that could have detrimental effects on funding for that school and I imagine many other different issues. And whether you agree or not, and I'm fairly sure you do, concerns are already being raised about where this location is and what is being proposed for that location.
There are also understandable concerns about the security of the site. It is not a detention centre and residents will generally be free to leave during the day. And there have been well-documented cases nationally of individuals leaving asylum accommodation and not returning. We fully accept that the majority of the people will comply with the system and present no issues. But in a village of fewer than 600 people, even a very small number of incidents has a disproportionate impact. It's therefore reasonable to ask whether policing, safeguarding and emergency services have been properly assessed and resourced for a change of this scale. The proposal is already also having consequences in the village. Parents have told us that they are considering withdrawing their children from Barnham School due to its proximity to the site. Even a small reduction in pupil numbers could threaten the long-term viability of a highly valued village school, and once lost, it's an asset that will not be replaced. Perhaps most concerning is that there appears to be no published assessment of the impact on infrastructure, services, or the host community. If this were a conventional housing development for 1,250 people, it would require extensive consultation, transport assessment, environmental review, and infrastructure planning.
Excuse me, Councillor Bow, I'm using my discretion. It's over 5 minutes now. If you could conclude in about 20 seconds, that would
be thank you.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I will summarise then. Barnham has been a thriving rural community for generations. The decision before you this afternoon will shape whether it remains one. It's not simply a question of accommodating 1,250 people, as I said, it's whether Barnham can absorb them. We are asking for fairness, transparency and proportionality in decisions that will define its future for years to come. And I therefore respectfully ask members to support the motion before you without amendment and to send a clear and united message to the Home Office that this proposal is neither proportionate nor appropriate for Barnham. Thank you.
The discussion then shifts away from Barnham itself and into money. The councillor Martin Robinson asks whether the estimated 4.4 million a year linked to the proposal could instead help local residents struggling to access the NHS dentistry, for example. His examples are striking. Families travelling miles for treatment, pensioners unable to afford dentures, people waiting months just to see a dentist.
Thank you also for the opportunity to speak today. I appreciate it very much. I've got a short statement I'd like to give, and then I've got a question for the Leader of the Council, Councillor Waterman. So, as mentioned, I'm Councillor for St Olaves and Tollgate, and my emphasis is both about the RAF Barnham today, but also very particularly about local residents. I read with interest the open letter from our MP, Peter Prinsley. In it, he welcomes the housing of irregular migrants arriving in the UK via illegal routes at RAF Barnham, and expresses concern for their welfare, including access to education, mental health support, translation services, meaningful activities during the day, safe travel and security. Notably, however, his letter avoids any reference to GP and dental services that we are told will be made available, as well as other allowances will be provided. We've yet to receive detailed cost information. A figure currently circulating is the baseline dispersal cost projection of £23.25 per day per person. This is the figure used in the recent comments commitments made by Home Secretary Shabama Mahmood in relation to a proposed £10,000 annual recovery from each irregular migrant. I'll not pursue that point today, but let's look at the figures really. When all costs are considered, a much more realistic annual cost of RAF Barnham is likely to be between £50 and £70 million a year. It is a matter of public record that district councils will receive or do receive a Grant 7 payment of £3,500 per migrant to support increased dispersal accommodation. In this case, in our case, that would amount to around £4.4 million a year. So I'm coming close to my question now. My question is on behalf of the residents of St Olaves and Tollgate, but also more widely, the residents of Bury St Edmunds. Last year, the father of a family of 4 asked me to help him find NHS dental provision. I couldn't find any locally, and he eventually secured treatment in Haverhill. 3 weeks ago, a dear pensioner contacted me because she needs replacement dentures. Having saved what little she could, she responded to an advertisement that suggested treatment would cost £900. That was all she had. After attending, she was told that the cost would be £1,800, and she was also charged £65 for her appointment consultation. She's approaching the point where she can't eat properly. I've also spoken to Mark Jones, founder of Toothless in England, who described cases of people pulling out their own teeth, developing sepsis and dying. So my question to you, Councillor Waterman, is this. Will you use the £4.4 million annual funding to establish a discretionary fund to help residents with dental access, including travel to out-of-town dentist, mean-tested assistance for urgent treatment such as dentures, and emergency support for those suffering toothache who cannot afford extractions? If not, why not?
Well, I won't comment about what other people have said or not said. I don't think that's appropriate. And also most of what Councillor Robinson has said is not relevant to this motion. But I just will point out to him that any funding that comes from central government to local authority, whether it be district or, as he will know, county councils, for this purpose is ring-fenced. So there's not really a lot of sense in his question. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd say that I did have my question checked before I came here today, and it wasn't disbarred as being irrelevant. I would ask you, Councillor Waterman, if you've got a heart for migrants who come here to this country illegally, why haven't you for my residents? You could spend the £4.4 million or find money from somewhere else.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Time's up.
I just have a brief statement I want to make as a concerned member of the public. In the last figures I actually saw about asylum seekers, it said they make up approximately 6% of the immigrants in the United Kingdom. In recent headlines in the media and the images are all of the need to protect our borders, our healthcare and our homes, and fears of our culture being destroyed by hostile immigrants. The site at Barnham sounds unsuitable for myriad reasons, but I trust that the Council will determine alternative actions and means to support vulnerable asylum seekers in the future.
By this point, a clear pattern is emerging. Different speakers are raising the same issues: sewage capacity, road safety, consultation, local services, infrastructure, wildlife. But almost everyone comes back to the same question: is RAF Barnham actually the right place for a facility this size?
Afternoon, everybody. Well, here we are again, about to have a really horrible weaponised moment in our perfect bit of Suffolk. And I just really hope that everybody in this room, you who are elected, our leaders and representatives, will make it really, really, really safe for all of us who live around that area. My friend was killed on a bike on that corner. Nothing has improved since then. Yeah, I think it's absolutely terrible the government haven't consulted. I'm retired now, but I know that those sewage treatment works won't hold 1,200 people. I don't really understand how, if we've suddenly got 1,200 spare spaces in somewhere that was not fit for human habitation, that we as humans are prepared to house people in places that, as far as I'm aware, is just for dogs, the military dogs, that's all it was. So I'm not really sure where the money's going to go, but are we going to have local jobs? There's a lot of money coming in to make us accept this deal. So do you think it's possible that we'll be able to make something of it? Will we be able to transform something for the local village? Or is this just dumping it? Thank you very much.
The council now moves to a formal debate. Councillor Cliff Waterman makes an important distinction. He repeatedly says that this isn't intended to become a debate on immigration itself. Oh, how scared people are to just voice their actual opinions, and they have to tiptoe around eggshells. Oh, can't say no. Grow a pair. Instead, the motion focuses purely on whether or not RAF Barnham is an appropriate location. Councillor Andrew Smith then seconds that motion and describes it as a cross-party issue, centred purely on protecting the interests of the people of Barnham.
I came to the personal view as leader of this council that Barnham was not a suitable site for the purpose proposed. Some other local leaders have stopped there. However, I wanted to have the strongest hand possible in working with the Home Office over this proposal. Therefore, I am seeking council support for this motion. It would mean, if I get your support, that when I speak with the Home Office, I can say I have the backing of the council. The Home Office are much more likely to listen to a leader who has the solid support of his council behind him, especially if that position is grounded in simple, practical considerations, rather than wider views about policy, immigration, and those wider issues. For these reasons, I ask for your support for this motion, which will strengthen our hand in these discussions and which will show that we are speaking as a responsible and practical body with the best interests of our residents, but also everyone else involved, at the heart of what we're saying. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman. Councillor Andrew Smith, I ask you to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to be able to second this motion. It's proof positive that this is a cross-party issue on behalf of our residents. We're not being political, and that's to be welcomed. My ward includes Barnham Parish and its community. RAF Barnham is clearly part of that parish. The parish of Barnham has under 600 residents, a village hall, a school, a primary school for 5 to 11-year-olds, plus a breakfast club, and a parish church. That is the extent of the facilities. Because there are no other facilities or shops, save for the fact there's a publicly accessible play area between the school and the village hall, so it's mainly used by school children, being picked up by parents. It is a small rural village and is one of the crown jewels in West Suffolk. In my experience, the community is mutually supportive and of a generous spirit. I work closely with Barnham Parish Council, and I know that they are considered to be proactive, active, and are more than an asset to the community. In actual fact, I do apologise. I did clap the chairman, in all fairness, because I thought he did an excellent job. We have in front of us a simple motion on what could become a complex issue, but let's stick to the issue about location. That if supported, and if we support the motion, it will reassure Barnham residents that they are not alone. In my opinion, and there is no guarantee, only cool and rational heads making intelligent, evidence-based arguments are more likely to succeed in favour of the widely held community view. And it's against that background, members, that I urge you all to support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
In the end, the motion was carried unanimously. Every councillor present voted in favour of opposing the RAF Barnham proposal. Now, whether that changes the Home Office's decision remains to be seen. But one thing is clear from this meeting and the one in Thetford: the lack of consultation amongst councils, residents, is shocking. It's clearly an agenda when everything's done in my opinion, it's clearly an agenda when everything's done on the quiet. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to be quiet. As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and I shall see you in the next video.